We're live.
All right. I've been going through a bunch of different incenses and the one we've been burning on the show has been probably the best. I got this one Palo Santo one and it's like not very good. Like a little rough.
It's crazy how smells will put you in a certain headspace. Like we've had the same aroma for every episode, and the second I smell it, it's like go time.
Are we going to lose our vibe once we run out of this incense? I don't know where I got it. I don't know where it's from.
Oh no.
I bought it in like a big, and funny enough, I got it at an estate sale.
No way.
With a bunch of other incense. And I thought they all kind of smelled the same, but maybe they didn't. Maybe it's because they were all bunched in the same box, you know? It was like a collection of a bunch of different incense. Anyway, I got this cool canteen a few years back over at Cowboys and Indians on Central here in Nob Hill.
I've wanted to go there for like 6 years and I've never gone.
It's awesome. I mean, the signage is beautiful. You could probably pull up a picture of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful historic building right there in Nob Hill here in New Mexico, here in Albuquerque. But we walked in there kind of checking things out on a day. We were trying to outfit Towns, our hair shop. And I saw this canteen, says Boy Hiker, and some really faded like print. And one of my favorite parts of it is obviously it's got all that, I don't know, that patina, that canvas that's just kind of faded and discolored over time. If you can see it, just give it that shot again, if you will. It's the lid that's like kind of one of my favorite parts. It says Boyco or something. Yeah, Boyco. But the logo itself is too good. It's like it's just filled with like rust and stuff inside. They can watch. That's so gross. Could be dirt. I have no idea. But I asked the guy about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll sell it to you."
I found the street view.
Yeah, that's the building.
Yeah, there's tons of cool lettering, and there you can't even see the other side of the building, but it's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we walked in there one day, and it's beautiful. It's like it's kind of an iconic spot if you're here in town, and you catch it. I think it's the same guy that's been in there for decades, but he's got these beautiful cases of just classic Southwest jewelry, and just a bunch of collectibles. Beautiful, beautiful space. But yeah, I picked this up, and it's been one of my favorite items. The old canteen. I have no idea on the story. I don't know if I remember asking him, but he didn't really charge a lot for it, which I was surprised. Because to me, it's pretty cool. But that's the show and tell. The old canteen. I wish I could date it. I bet if somebody did some research, I could have done research, but Boyco, maybe type that in. I'm curious. Boyco Canteen. Boyco Canteen.
Have you always been into thrifting, or what got you into that?
I don't know when it began. I feel like I used to, have no mind. I remember the first time I became conscious of style. It was my cousin Patrick. We grew up being best friends, hung out all the time, skated together, everything together type of thing. All of our time spent together. But I remember he made fun of my shoes, my skate shoes. He's like, "Yeah, those are ugly." And I was like, "Oh, I never even thought about that. Never even thought about the way things looked." Yeah. No, I mean, I think that relates to this, but because like my consciousness for like style or like quality goods or whatever it is, I think began back then. But I didn't, I think it had something to do with, moving away from Albuquerque and living in Nashville for a while and coming back in 2014 And I just saw it totally different. It was like my whole perspective changed once you leave. It's like the grass is always greener, and then you go in Tennessee, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's really green, rains a ton, it's humid. There's a lot to like, but once you get away for like a year, you start to really appreciate your home. Like, growing up here, there's no water. Like, I think there's like less water per capita in this state as far as like rivers, lakes, that type of thing, than any other state or than the great majority of other states. And growing up here, it's like, man, water was always awesome. I always wanted to like live by the beach, live that life. I still do. And so when I got out, there's lakes, all kinds of Lake Radnor, gosh, I don't even remember the lakes that were right there. But and you experience is cool. But you come back and you're like, oh, I remember I went, me and my wife, before she was my wife, Bree, we would go every Monday and just go drive. This is when we started kind of redating. We have a long saga. In fact, it'd be fun to have her on and we could talk about it. But this was after we'd broken up many times. And after a year, I'd been gone in Nashville. I came back and we would go every Monday and just go drive a direction. Go like north, south, east, west, and just aimless, no GPS, and just go try to find new things that we'd never seen before growing up here. And then it just kind of was like this exercise in like appreciation of your home. And I remember we drove west, and it was out near, I don't remember, it's probably like an hour west off of the I-40. And we drove off into like some reservation area. And pre-COVID, you could do that and nobody's going to give you a hard time. Now everybody's kind of strict about stuff like that. But we would just, we found these really, just this vast view, this like kind of like a lookout. And it was beautiful. It was like ridges, and the earth was really just cool. And it was right around sundown. So light's awesome. It's golden hour. And so I took a bunch of pictures of her. They're on my Instagram. But all that to say, I remember taking a picture of just the land and with a new renewed perspective. And I was like, this is awesome. And I remember my buddy Kelly, he messaged me. He's like, nice rock. Cause he's from here as well. And he didn't have that perspective, I don't think. He probably just thought of it as an ugly, New Mexico rock. But having been away, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Like, it was beautiful to me. And I started to appreciate it, the train tracks and the lore and the culture. I was like, oh my gosh, my eyes just got open to it. But it sucks that you kind of have to get away from it to really appreciate it.
I was able to find a canteen similar. Looks like, at least the ones I'm finding online are from 1917, 1919 maybe.
No way.
And they're like metal, various different sizes. Here's an image for you. That looks like a set.
Oh, wow, yeah. Just a bit thicker, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like...
Probably the same manufacturer, of course.
Yeah, if you look up the name, they're all kind of the same shape, but yeah, different sizes.
Huh. Interesting. It'd be crazy if this is from 100 years ago.
Dude, you should do that. You were showing me that guy that does the military rations.
Yeah.
You should drink water out of that like the whole show next week. That's what you should do.
Yeah. No, like he's pretty smart about it though. Like he'll smell it. He'll test like a can if he's going to open it. Does it have a hiss? And then he goes, nice hiss. It's like a whole thing.
Yeah, I got like on a rabbit hole of those. I watched him till like 2 a.m. one night.
He still puts them out. Yeah.
He does, yeah. And now that I know who he is, there's a bunch of TikTokers that make like food shows and they reference him. Like they talk about him all the time.
Yeah. For those that don't know, his YouTube channel is Steve1989, and he just posts a bunch of really old and modern food rations where he eats them. And he some of the more notable ones were where he ate like a 1901 food ration or a World War I food ration. And some of the things had like rust in them and like old spoiled cheese spreads and stuff. It's so gross. But he'll eat some of them. He's smart about it though. Like he smells it. Oils are rancid. Like he kind of talks about it all. It's very, very fascinating. But we did an episode on him, or we did a segment on him. It was probably like the 4th episode or something like that. But yeah, that's my show and tell. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to For Goodness Sake with Chad Barela, me, and producer Chorus Padilla.
What's up, everybody?
How have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy with graphic design, which it's not really new, and having a good time doing the show.
Yeah. What's your balance, would you say, percentage-wise on your work? Are you open for work, by the way?
I'm always open for work. So if you need a logo, custom graphic design of any sort, hit me up at choruspadilla.com.
Come on.
Are you going to ask me about work-life balance or what's that?
No, I was going to, just like freelance versus employment percentage. How much would you say occupies your time?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Mostly employment?
Yeah,
I know you
40
do a lot
hours a week is like, that's a lot of time. So that's my kind of bread and butter is Calvary. And then I try to stay busy, do a few hours an evening, pretty much most evenings for graphic design. If a big project comes around, I'll kind of, post out for a full weekend and put in like full days, but
yeah, that's
not as frequent.
I'm so envious of some of your experience working in teams in the creative world, because being like a solo guy, like what I'm realizing is, dude, my brain, it's like capped out right now. Like it's not working. It's really not working like it should. Over the weekend, I was talking to Bree, and I was realizing, even just by talking to her, like having someone to talk to and bounce ideas, thoughts that I'm having, what I'm having really a big trouble about, and this is part of what I wanted to get into, is finding focus. I cannot focus. I'm because I've got like, I got to do a marketing campaign. I've got to create jewelry. I've got to create jewelry for this project, and then I've got to, fulfill my made to orders. Then I got to create new pieces, and then not only do I got to do those, I got to design for those. Then I got to design for other people. And so I have a hard time categorizing all of the different hats that I wear. So I need to outsource many things. I need to figure out a system to build a team. But there's a lot of risk there. I'm a little nervous about that. So we're trying to figure out different ways of incentivizing that, or, creating value for others. In fact, I'm working on an internship. I'll probably announce next week. For those of you who may be interested in making Southwest jewelry, being a part of the biz, more on that later. Just a quick tease. But yeah, so I'm leaning on like these, I don't know what you call them. What would you call Notion?
Primarily, I'd say it's a project management tool.
A project management tool.
And then also like a note keeping app.
Yeah, it's like an organizational tool. You can use it for businesses, for personal use. And I'm in so much need of this. I've got notes all over, right? I use notes, and then I use pages. I have my stuff in like different email or different parts of my hard drive on different types of formats. And what I really need is to consolidate it all, organize it all, format it all, and make them shareable. Really boring stuff, especially for a guy who has not a lot of experience in organizing his thoughts. But this last week, I spent a couple of days working on new merchandise ideas for the show and for the Common Trading Post, because it's kind of getting a little stale over there. I need to create some new stuff. So, of course, and I are working on some new stuff, and so I'm trying to get the ball rolling. But it's so hard to solely commit to one thing when, I've got orders to be fulfilled. It's like the ball never stops rolling. And so to find that focus and just zero down. Right before this, I was writing out some of the ideas I had for this internship program opportunity thing. And Bree was like, just focus on one thing and create a boundary. Don't focus on anything else for the next hour. And talking to her, like, it helps because in the mind I'm in right now, or it's just overload, overkill, I can't even think to do that. To just solely focus on that. So I did. Up until when Chorus arrived, I was just writing down tasks that I need help with. and it's crazy. It's a lot of things, totally things that can be outsourced, that I can get the help with. But it takes the time to do it, to write them down. And then not only do I have to write them down, what happens is in my mind is I'll write those things down. Okay, I need help with shipping. I need help with, making stacking rigs, whatever it is. So then I'll get there and then I'm like, oh yeah, that means I got to create a system or a standard operating procedure for how to do these things, to outsource this. So now I got to create a video of how to do these things. And so then I get over in my SOPs document and I'm like, and so like I can't focus on one thing and it's all like one web thing. And it's not always like that. Sometimes I get in the zone and I'm like going, like if I'm creating jewelry or something, like I'm doing a collection, I can buckle down. And if I could just solely focus on that one thing for the week, I can pump it out and I'm super efficient, productive, feels great. But what happens is I neglect every other thing and all of the other plates drop and shatter on the floor and I lose all momentum. And so that's the thing I'm currently trying to work on, which is why I'm seeking help. But Chorus is awesome. Super helpful guy. He's another guy I bounce ideas off of often. Great insight. But yeah, dude, like you have these, like what programs do you use with Calvary?
So Calvary runs everything off of Teams, Microsoft Teams. And that's primarily because our email system and our communication is all through Microsoft. But one of the huge benefits that I have, there's thousands of different softwares out there to help you get organized. But we have a full-time project manager who just kind of keeps us, all the creative people, on task. And she is such a huge blessing because her sole purpose, at least as it pertains to like me and my role, is helping create hierarchies of projects and tasks for me. So when I feel stuck and I feel like there's 17 things I could focus on and 3 things I want to focus on and 2 things I don't want to focus on,
right?
I go to her and she allocates the time. Okay, you're going to do this first. We're going to do this.
That's what I need. That's what Bree did for me today. And it was that was exactly what I needed. Was just someone to say, okay, I kind of schedule it out. Now I need the self-discipline to be able to do that myself.
Well, it's hard because it's like you're doing everything, right? So it's like, how do you choose between your children? Like all of these things are things that you're doing. And so to impose a hierarchy or a priority would be kind of artificial. But we need hierarchy in order to structure ourselves in our days.
Yeah.
And so even just having someone else who's not emotionally tied to it, who's not creatively invested at all, saying, hey, objectively, we have a shipping date here. We have a launch date here. This could be on the back burner for another week, or we could outsource it, just help make that call.
Yep.
The trick is just,
but you switch hats. They're entirely different mindsets. And that's the hardest part about it. And then when you put your hat on, your mindset, that mindset of like, okay, I need to be a decision maker, not creative, thinking outside, going all the way to the like, when I go, it's like this. If I'm going to start on Notion, I'm working on this. It's not new, but I'm going to try to adopt Notion into my workflow and note taking and business organizing and sharing documents, all that stuff. I'm going to try to utilize it. But when I commit to wanting to do that, I don't want to do it on a surface base level. I want to understand the thing, which means I got to now invest hours of time to learning the program, learning all of the different things it can do, which I just don't have. And my wife would be like, well, why would you do that? It's because I think that's a part of my personality of obsession. I have kind of like that obsession thing. Like if I go to like a store, or like a thrift shop or whatever it is, like an antique shop, whatever it is, I have to look through every aisle at every item to make sure that I don't feel that sense of missing that treasure or that thing that could help me go the next level, whatever it is, Like I hate the feeling of, it's like right now, last week rather, I was working on hats. It's not a lot of great manufacturers manufacturing hats in America. Truckers. There's like a handful of people making quality trucker hats. But I was going down. So I have to go through every single avenue, exhaust every option. I have to go through, okay, if there's not any options in America, I've got to go through Alibaba. I've got to see what are my options with China, ethics, thinking through all of those. Now I've got to go through all the moral issues, the pros, cons. And so I'm literally creating like all these sheets. And then when I go and do it to that degree, my brain explodes. And this is what happened is it stopped working. And last Friday I just was like in fry mode. My brain was fried, discouraged, frustrated. I feel like I'd wasted, a day just doing research. It's not wasted time, but so that's kind of my mindset. So if I'm going to do that, manufacturing has now, I found a few. And so I feel like, dang, I got to kind of settle here on a couple of these. Or I can go all in and create entirely custom, which I'm not going to do that. Like that doesn't make any sense. And so I looked up a video, I think it was on Friday after all of this, and I was like, decision fatigue or whatever. I just was trying to find like some advice on like people who would have the same issue, going kind of in the same rut that I was in. And I came across a video and it was talking about the decision fatigue. And it was interesting because this person pointed out that Steve Jobs and there's a handful of people, even like Alex Hormozy. She didn't quote him or use him as an example, but they wore the same thing every single day because many people do this because they want to minimize their decisions so that they can reserve that brain power for the ones that matter. But Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day. These are executives. These are people that are making the chief decisions. And here I am wasting, my decision power on useless things. So it's funny, it's like decision inception, where you have to make a decision not to make decisions about certain things. So you have to like call the executive decision, okay, I've got to create a boundary here. I'm focusing on this. And I'm making a decision to not make those other decisions because then I've got to reserve that brain power to make the correct decisions, the ones that are. So I'm having to prioritize. I think that's really what it comes down to is figuring out how to prioritize your decision making. And I'm not good at it. It's something I'm really kind of coming to terms with. It's not that I can't get good at it, but what is it? You got to admit that you got a problem before you can address it. And so that was my week last week. And so I'm working with Notion, trying to figure out how to offload all of these things so they're not weighing on my brain and so that I can utilize other people's brains with those things. I can outsource them, use teamwork. But part of it is like, Chorus, you know this, I have a hard time asking for help. We have a photographer friend, Tish. She's like, let me shoot photos for you. And I'm like, no, it's not that I don't want her to, but I'm like, I want to pay you and I want to have a plan. And so that means that I've got to devote all this time and energy to creating a plan and versus kind of just trusting, hey, do you do it? Or not just that, but I have to figure out how am I going to pay for this? So I got to create a budget. And that stuff never gets done. And so she never shoots photos. So she, on Sunday, was like, let me shoot photos for you. Don't worry about paying me. We could figure that out later. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And so that's a part of the trouble for me is being able to ask for help, one, and offloading some of that onto like Notion, some of my creativity or what are my ideas, to be able to share those ideas with other people so that I don't have to exhaust that brain power every single time. For example, I've trained a handful of silversmiths over the years with no specific plan or vision in mind on my end. It was more just like charity. Somebody voiced, interest in learning how to make jewelry. So I was like, yeah, come hang out. You could shadow me while I work. And there you go. And deep down, I probably wanted some long-term camaraderie or teamwork, or like to be able to utilize that shared collective energy toward one collective purpose. And what ended up happening is, and no shame to anybody, but it becomes kind of like I exhaust my energy in teaching with no return, and that's fine. Like there's a place, time and place for that. But I'm at a place where like I don't know that I'm willing to do that again anymore without a return on investment, right? And it kind of sounds selfish, and it kind of is, but I'm at a place where I need help. And so it isn't selfish to ask for help. And funny enough, when I worked at Starbucks, this is a rant, isn't it? When I worked at Starbucks, one of their star skills, I might have said this before, but it was asking for help. And that always stuck out to me because that seemed like a strange one. It requires humility to be able to ask for help. And I'm still not good at it because then I think what it comes down to is I don't like the feeling of being indebted to someone. And what's interesting about that, why is that? Why don't I want to feel indebted to someone? I don't want to owe somebody anything. I don't want to owe anybody any. That's why I don't have credit cards. That's why I don't have any debt aside from my mortgage. I don't like, there was an old saying, it's funny, I pulled a handful of quotes out of this old etiquette book I read, or maybe it was just old wisdom quotes, generic wisdom quotes. And this one was, it's better to go to sleep hungry than wake up in debt. And I really took that one to heart. And what's funny being a business owner, entrepreneur, or whatever, is that I've always hated money. I hated everything to do. I didn't want to do, I literally, my goal when I was 19 years old was to own land and to live off the land, not engage in commerce with money at all. It was just corrupt. It was money is the root of all evil type of thing. And I took it too far. The poverty gospel, for those of you guys familiar. And so I took it to the extreme, as I am one to do. And so I just wanted to live off the fat of the land, but it was from that wisdom quote, or whatever it was, better to go to sleep hungry than to wake up in debt. And I think I've carried that over too far, taken it too far. And there's actually a virtue to indebting, is that the right way to say that? Indebting yourself to others in a healthy way. I heard this recently within the last year or so that in a certain neighborhood, somebody was telling this story where it was custom to, when a new person moved in, for the neighbors to ask for help in something. Because it was almost like an act of charity, like, hey, let me help you with something, or help me with something so that I can owe you, so that you have one. So it created this like relational, I don't know, not dependence, but this, I owe you one. You can call on me. You can ask for help. That type of relationship. And I thought that was interesting because I'm not that way. I've never been really that way. And I think it's part of my family culture too. We've never asked for help. My mom to this day, never. My dad, he just does it himself. And I'm the same way. And there's some honor attached to that, but there's also like a degree of, there's a lack of teamwork in that as well. Funny enough, I remember when I was about 20 years old and I played in a band here locally, Del Puckett. I'm going to have him on the podcast here maybe next week, or actually 2 weeks from now. I went over to his house. I played in his daughter's band, the Poema, here locally. And I remember going to their house, and they were a favor family. They would always ask for favors. And that was so different from my family. I just remember noting that in my mind. I was like, that's so weird. Like, they always ask each other for favors. Hey, can you do this for me? Hey, can you do this for me? And my family, I just remember that was a surprising thing to me because my family's not very much that way at all. If they saw something to do, they would just do it themselves, my parents. And that didn't create the most disciplined young man in myself, unfortunately, which I'm now struggling to learn. But it is a quality that I'm dead set on figuring out. Asking for help. asking chorus for help. Hey, man. Because you know what it comes down to is I hate to burden you. I hate to burden you or anybody else with me. It's like a false humility type of thing. But there is a strange thing about like, hey, I'm gonna ask you for help. And what that means is it's funny because it comes down to selfishness, because I don't want to, it's at some level, it's me not wanting to be burdened. I think that's kind of what it comes down. Like it's scary for me to make more friends because I can't sustain my life as it is. And so asking for help means that, oh no, I'm going to be called on. And I don't know that I have the capacity to fulfill those things. Maybe that's part of it, right? And so that's ultimately kind of selfish. That's the plot twist in the whole thing.
I think it's also like kind of pragmatic though. It's like when you're capable of doing a lot of different things, it's hard to ask for help in those areas, because it's like I would have to be, at least for myself, I don't really ask for help for things that I can do competently. Even if I'm overburdened in doing things I'm competent at, it's like I would never ask for help for that, And so in my mind, which I know is also like warped, it's like I only ask for help in areas that I am just totally out of my depths. But then that means I'm like asking people to help me with things that I'm so unaware of that I don't even know if I'm getting quality help at that point, know? And so like, I could see how someone in your position, like you do a lot of things. You're like chief marketing officer, you're the lead artist, you're in charge of everything that you do, and you do it with excellence. And so getting into a headspace where like there's more value in actually offloading some of these tasks to someone else, it can be a hard thing to get to. It's a hard conclusion to get to, or even justification to get to.
And what it is, because I wear so many hats, and I think I've developed so many skills because of partially necessity, and like I'm can't afford to hire somebody, $2,000 to create a logo for me, so I'll just buckle down and spend the time to figure out how to do it. I never really thought about the back end difficulty of that. Is once you have the skill, now you've got to spend the time doing the work. And then when you've acquired all these different skills, and then you get called on it by the church to play on Sunday, and then you got to rehearse and do two more. And then so now your skills, I was telling Bree, it's funny because it sounds very arrogant and stuck up, but I was saying something. It sucks being good at so many things. It's like having a truck, and always being asked, hey, can you help me move? Hey, can you help me move?
That's a great analogy.
And because it sucks kind of having the truck, right? Because you're like, shoot, man, you're calling me again? You got to move again? Oh, I got to, that's kind of how I feel asking for help is, and now I'm going to be called on, and I'm like, I don't know if I can with everybody, right? But there was somewhere I wanted to go with that. Where did you come out of? What was the last thing you said?
I think it's reasonable to see how you could get to a place where it's like hard to rationalize asking for help.
So I have this desire, being as obsessive as I am about things, or like if I'm gonna do a podcast, I want to do it to the best of my ability. And so I just obsess and I research and I look up lighting, cameras, lenses, mics, processing, software, all the stuff. And I go all in. And that's a good quality to have, right? The world deserves your best. We talked about this. So give it your best. Do everything. Anything you do it as if unto the Lord. Do your best. The problem is when you wear all these hats, you can't do your best with every single thing. It requires sacrifice. Decision making. You have to make the executive call. Okay, you got to cut a limit. You got to set a time limit. You can't go beyond this point, which means that I've got to sacrifice quality. I've got to sacrifice giving it my best. And that feels like compromise. And it is compromise. And it bugs me. I don't like that at all. I don't like that. And so I've got to figure out a way to not compromise. And the only way to do that is to build a team, is to offload, is to teach, is to systemize, is to create standard operating procedures, and that's the way. That's just the way of nature. I think that's just the way it was supposed to be, right? It was, you get people who learn skills, who learn things, and then once they've learned them, now it's your duty to teach them. And it's not that and that's where I kind of feel a little conflict, is because I'm not an expert in a lot of things. I know a lot about a little, or I know a little bit about a lot. And so I kind of feel a little bit like a fraudster if I were to I'm going to teach things, because I can't. Like you know a lot more about Illustrator, Photoshop, the software stuff. I know a little bit about a lot of different things. And so I'm kind of stuck in this position where I've got to figure out how to build a team, offload what I do know, because I do know some stuff, especially to people who don't know anything, jewelry, figuring out the things that I'm best at, the most expert at, if any of those things, and offloading, teaching, building a team, camaraderie. This is what, this is, and this will go into a different topic here that I wasn't really planning on talking about, but I think is an important one. There was a book called, it was by one of the co-founders of PayPal. He was a partner with Elon Musk. I forget his name, Peter Thiel. He wrote a book called Collaboration, Not Competition, something against competition, the idea of competition. Don't compete. And I listened to a good amount of that book a few years back, 2016, 17. But it was an interesting thing, and I didn't like the idea because I'm a very competitive person, especially at the time. Like, I just believe in this. I'm just very competitive, like out-compete, outwork. And there's something to that, but there's also something to what he was talking about. And I'm coming to really understand it, maybe not in the vein that he was talking about, but this idea of, at least here locally, there's this idea of like, I see what they're doing, I'm going to do it better. And that's what I've noticed over the last, 5 years of like even teaching people, jewelry or, is that there's, instead of a collective vision with a collective team mindset, and I'm guilty of this as well, I'm going to branch off and I'm going to do my own thing. And I envy other businesses that have partners, business partners. Seeger, they have a podcast, Seeger Company. They have a podcast, and it's like the three partners of the business. And I imagine they fight, they struggle, they disagree, they clash heads, but they have a collective vision, and they're able to give much more effort, and they get much more fruit out of a collective vision. What is it saying? It says you can go fast alone, you can go far together, you can go far together, fast alone, that idea. And I can go fast alone, but I can't go far. I've capped out. I can't go any further. I need help. And now I need help the right way. I want to figure out how to do it the right way, in a way that I'm not going to burn out by just, what I'm worried about is like I'd have to teach an employee or, an apprentice, and then they'll hang out for 3 months and then they'll move on and they'll do their own thing. This is what's happened a few times. Not bashing anyone, of course. But that kind of leaves my effort without the return, and it's unsustainable. And so I'm trying to figure out how can I work out sustainable ways of offering value and also retaining some of that value and having collective purpose. Like, I want to bring in people who believe in the same collective vision. I want to see Albuquerque succeed. I want us to preserve the best of our culture and pass it on to the next generation. That's values. That's goods. And so part of it is, hey, solidify your vision. solidify all these things. So I'm funny enough, as long as I've been doing this, almost 10 years, I'm at the beginning stages of something. Hopefully, that can turn into something real big with collective value, collective purpose that could go far. I really believe in it. I really believe that, God has purposes for different people, born into different families for different purposes, with different visions, different ambitions, different personality traits, these different things. But I really do think that a large portion of my purpose in life is to do what I'm doing here on the show, in making jewelry, in being an uncompromising, unwavering Christian. And I think that the Lord wants, now this could change, but I think that the Lord wants me to build this company. The old dogs who are in the trading post business, in the jewelry business, in the turquoise business, are kind of, they're not going to be around forever. And who's going to keep it going? Truthfully. Now, it's not shade on them. I love them. I'm, beneficiary of them. I'm in business with them, many of them. But, who's going to keep it going? We are. So, I don't know. I think we're at the beginning of something real new, real cool. But I do think that we need to fight against this idea, this mentality of like competing against each other, of like, because it's real, I don't know. It's kind of ugly, like this, I'm going to do it better. It's arrogant. It's, why not do it better together? Why not figure out a way to collectivize, to partner, to unionize, and put, there's power in numbers. And so I need to figure out how to put that together. Of course, leadership and hierarchy, there's certain structural things that are just necessary for building something. And they're kind of foreign to me. They're natively foreign to me, like as far as my upbringing and most of us. But the resources are there. We can figure it out, So that's where I'm at. Let's buckle down, figure these things out, build something big. You look at a construction job, for example, and I just look at like, how do these skyscrapers get built? Like, where does that project begin? It starts with a vision. It starts with desire. It starts with grit, determination. And then you got to have the hard work. You got to pitch a vision, and you got to get other people to, come on board. And that's a task. It takes faith. And I don't have a lot of faith, believe it or not. I need to work on that in regards to business. And, I've just not had a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it. I have not had a lot of great experiences working with other people, aside from Chorus. We've talked about this before. Chorus has been the best team player. And so, anyways, that's kind of those things. So I need to figure out these software platforms. Notion. That's what I spent a good amount of my day on today.
It would be a good interview. I'm pretty sure the listener will remember Aaron Moreno, our buddy from a couple episodes ago. I think he's related to a project manager that works for like a software startup. I bet she would have some great insight on how to like take this to the next level.
What'd be cool is if we had Aaron and her, where he could kind of help us out. Maybe we could like a mining event, a knowledge mining event.
That would be incredible.
My hope, it'd be awesome, is 3-5 years from now, we look back on these episodes and we're like, man, remember when it was just like us, before the team, before that. So I have big ambitions and a vision for a large company, hopefully not compromising in quality and all the other good things, values. But, it'd be awesome to look back in 5 years and be like, dang, awesome. Remember that episode? That would be awesome. But yeah, we should organize that. In fact, we could put that down, mark that, and it would be fun. It would be good to have her on, and I could just ask her questions. Aaron could kind of facilitate it as well. It'd be awesome. Working on a secondary set. We did the other set here with this backdrop, but I want to create the other set over there. There's this idea, actually. This is on topic. I had written this down. Alex Hormozi, he's awesome. He's a really great mind to tap into. Tons of energy, tons of insight, tons of faith. But he was talking about this idea that a lot of people are really good at starting things, but they're not good at like going to the next level. And what's interesting is business is kind of like business or anything really, relationships. I think we had talked about this, but it's like you come up to a bridge, budgeting, right? Or like, oh, I got to get a business license. Oh, I've got to open a bank account. Oh, I've got to, create the vision, the mission, all these different things. Oh, I've got to employ people. And they're all different bridges that you come to and you're like, do I want to cross that bridge? And every business at a certain scale has to cross the exact same bridges. Some just don't want to. Some people just don't want to, and therefore they don't get there. And Alex Hormozi was kind of talking about this kind of like in a video game way, where some people get to the final boss of starting a business and then they realize, oh, I've got to pitch my product to other people. And they don't want to beat that final boss. And so they start over and they go back to the first level and they start a new business. And they think that, maybe I can, get past that final boss get past that level without beating the final boss or something. But then they get to that point and they're like, oh shoot, I got to face something that I don't want to. I got to become a salesperson. I've got to ask for investment. I got to put myself out there. I got to be vulnerable on a podcast. I've got, whatever it is. You think of all these different roads you got to cross. Oh, I've got to build a team. Oh, I've got to build, a website or whatever it is. And some people, everybody reaches a bridge and everybody gets to a bridge that they don't want to cross. And some of these are the boring things, like where I'm currently kind of at. I'm like, got to spend hours, not hours, that's dramatic, but learning a new platform, figuring out how to use it and the best practices, all these different things. I'm like, yeah, I got to buckle down and do the boring stuff. I got to budget, got to do these things. Because if I don't cross these bridges, I'm not going to get past to the next level of success. And that's true. And what's cool about it, it's not just for the sake of success. It's like a game. There's actually an old TED talk about this, gamifying life. You're conquering. We talked about it. So you're conquering a hill. You're scaling a mountain in a sense by conquering yourself. You're conquering your own willpower. Chorus and I recently did a willpower test. We did a cold plunge at our buddy Nate's house. You know what I found out is that you're not supposed to do it as low as we did. It was 35 degrees. It was like sub 35 degrees, somewhere around there. Ice bath, freezing cold. Thankfully, it was warm outside, but this ice bath was freezing cold. And I'd never done an ice bath before. I'd wanted to for a long time, just for they say that it increases your capacity for stress, taking cold showers, doing stuff like that. And it's just a test of your will. And Chorus did it. I did it. Did it for 3 minutes. And it was brutal. It was a test. It was a mental stress. Would you say? A mental test?
Yeah, for me it was like weird. I don't like to do things in front of people.
Yeah, so
I kind of like being on the B camera, not the A camera.
You crossed that bridge,
and so that was, for me, probably doing it in front of a group of people staring was probably the hardest thing. But yeah, I looked it up and we were definitely like 20 degrees sub like normal.
Yeah, you're not supposed to start there. I think you're supposed to start somewhere around like 65.
And we had a buddy who did like 10 minutes straight his first time.
60 sounds crazy. No, that's like a swimming pool. What am I talking about?
I think 50 is like the norm. And we were like on the very bottom of like what they recommend for people that do it frequently.
Yeah. But Matt Carlson, he was just on 2 episodes ago. He did 10 minutes. It was like, I think at that point it was still really cold, but it was like around 40, or just sub 40, somewhere around there. But they kept getting new ice and then kept cycling, and it was so cold. But what's funny is this morning I was like, I'm going to take a cold shower. And I did. Wasn't even cold, in comparison. So that was, proof positive of you do something that extreme. Now my capacity for a cold shower is so much greater. Like I used to be like, oh, I can't bear this. It partially wasn't even that cold. Like my shower doesn't even get that cold, but it's funny.
It's like the gift of perspective, Yeah.
And I think that's, I think I've noticed a pattern that I'm not physically fit, like I'm not out of shape. I'm not in shape, but I've noticed that a lot of successful entrepreneurs, Alex Hormozy, I always bring him up. For example, dude's ripped. The dude is ripped. Now, he probably uses a lot of supplements and different things like that, sure. But there's a pattern with a lot of successful people. They exercise. And I think there's something mentally, not just physically, but mentally attached to the discipline of exercising consistently. And as an indicator of their success, that if they have discipline in their exercise, in their eating habits, and those types of things, it's like Jesus says, if you're faithful in the little things, if you're not faithful with the little things, you won't be entrusted with more. That type of mentality, that type of thing. And so I noticed that and that pattern in successful entrepreneurs, that oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes it's marked by smaller disciplines, smaller successes that they were able to conquer. And when you conquer those hills, the other ones, right, become so much smaller. You're willing to say, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to make the biggest pitch of my life. I'm going to put myself in front of thousands of people, whatever it is, the thing that you're terrified of. And the thing that's cool about it is not just like, oh, I get a monetary, value. It's not that. It's this, I am improving myself. I am facing my fears. I am, conquering, in a sense, myself. And I think that's the real intrigue to me. It's to be able to conquer, to not let it's like Paul talks about, I beat my body into submission. That way I may be a slave to nothing but Christ, that type of idea. It's coming around, it's discipline. Ice baths. I'd like to do that more, but I don't know that I want to have one. I'll probably take frequent cold showers. Not that that's quite it, but let's go to Nate's every week. Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would do it again. I could see how someone could get hurt in them though, because right about the 3-minute mark, I was kind of in a headspace of like, oh, I could do this for a long time. But then it apparently gets really dangerous.
Yeah.
Like there was a clip of Dana White who is all pissed off because I guess, I don't know if it was like a marketing team or something, but they had done video recordings of a bunch of MMA fighters doing it for like 20 plus minutes. And
Whoa.
It's like super dangerous, like long-term organ issues and stuff.
Yeah, imagine. Like, at what point does it become hypothermia,
Pretty quick, I would think. I mean, even Matt, the way Matt was talking about like his fingers hurting, his nails hurting, like his nail bed afterward, I was like, that's like not right. Like way later into the evening.
Yeah. And he runs hot generally.
Yeah, he does.
He talks about how he takes a cold shower every day. He goes on a big bike ride. In the middle of the day, when it's really hot and he comes home sweating, he just gets in the cold shower. So that makes sense, cools you down, feels really good. But he runs hot normally. So when he did the podcast, we had to hit the fan going. We can't keep the fan going for noise reasons in here. So like I'm like sweating right now. I'm like hot. But taking cold showers for cool off is a little different than maybe like taking a cold shower to exercise willpower and discipline. But that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I didn't really prepare for listener questions this week. I wanted to do this. I felt like, I was telling Chorus, I kind of wanted to get back to like just riffing and letting the episode kind of take shape, take form. Having a little less of a controlled hand on how things turn out and kind of let things happen naturally, organically. I don't know. I partially because I don't have the capacity, the mental capacity to create show notes every week. And it was kind of becoming a little bit burdensome, that I wanted to kind of more so just figure out bullet points of things I'm thinking about, things that are challenging me that might be useful to other people, things that interest me. So yeah, I wanted to kind of get back to that organic, that the first few episodes were very like just riffing, because I kind of got a little bit more calculated. So I'm trying to like retune a bit. So bear with me if you sense a stylistic change. It's intentional. But yeah, we intentionally tried to pull back a little bit on the format. And so we don't have any listener questions, I don't think. And no final video unless you got some fun things.
I think I got one right here.
Whoa, that's talent. Dude.
The edit's on point too.
Yeah. So they like planned that out.
Yeah, it's like totally coordinated.
That's really good. I'm very impressed.
It actually is, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a little gay, but...
Well, I don't think you can group dance without it being a little bit gay. Like line dancing at a wedding is always a little sus, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is cool. It's like, hey, I think the pink pants threw me off, but, the boys getting together and doing a kung fu fighting dance.
I don't like, okay, if we got together with our group of friends and one of us casually suggested we all dance together in front of the phone, we would get roasted so hard.
Oh, absolutely. Good video. That'll do the show. Thank you so much for listening. If this show was of any value to you, would you please like and subscribe to the channel? Give a comment down below. Favorite moments. The longest time you've ever done an ice bath, etc. That'll about do it. Thank you. Love you. Bye.